Song from the Divines, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Fanfiction by the Singing Sword. The Birth of the King, Part 1. The Lady Luck Inn. Rain finally poured onto the roof of the Lady Luck Inn, a cozy tavern nestled in the middle of the Ascar forest in the earldom of Ashford. The trees whistled in the night as the bullying winds rustled their leaves. They all fell from their branches by the dozens and glided in the darkness. Most started covering the dirt road that cut through the forest, and others bumped into the sturdy stone walls of the inn. The warm orange glow in the windows gave relief to a shadowy traveler walking in the dark, leading his black mare by a leather bridle. He had a black cloak over his shoulders, with the hood up to protect him from the storm. He noticed an iron lamp, sturdy against the gale, hanging over a moldy wooden sign that pointed west. It read Fairfax. Lost, he thought. That meant he still had many miles to go before reaching his destination at the foot of the mountains. He felt his stomach growl at the smell of sweet meats and freshly baked bread coming from the smoking chimney. Quickly, he led his horse to the last free stable and locked up the gate after feeding it a bag of oats. The stranger followed a stone path through a garden pond. A frog was croaking on a lily pad, but it stopped upon seeing the stranger pass through. Something about him spooked the little creature, causing it to hop off the lily pad and dive into the water with a loud plop. The stranger opened the wooden door and was graced by a kiss from the hearth burning at the entrance. In the den lit up by paper lanterns shaped like fire-breathing dragons, a band played songs of merriment with drums, tambourines, lutes, and wooden pipes. Weary travelers, mercenaries, merchants, and miners from the nearby caverns were huddled together in their parties, helping themselves to hot chicken roasts and cold ale to wash it down with. The rich smell of stewed vegetables and sizzling bacon embraced the nostrils of many of the locals, wetting their mouths and forcing their bellies to moan lustfully. Mugs fell, glasses broke, and the patrons laughed. The song of the band was almost drowned out by the pouring rain and the sudden clash of thunder that shook the foundation of the inn. A fat patron in the corner scratched his belly and answered the thunder with a loud burp, causing many of the others to laugh. The innkeeper at the counter grimaced at the sight of the hooded man. He had been in business long enough to know that men like him like to start trouble. So, he kept his hand on the grip of his rusty iron sword, in case the hooded stranger in front of him meant ill intent. What'll it be? The innkeeper asked. Meat, the stranger responded. His voice was scratchy and cold, as if someone took a dagger and slid it across the surface of a block of stone. I require lodging as well. The road was long, and I still have a ways to go. The innkeeper paused while wiping a mug with a linen washcloth. Apologies, my lord. We have no lodging available. However, you are more than welcome to lay your head down on one of the tables for the night. That will suffice, the stranger said. He looked around for an available spot to rest and eat, then located a table right by the window and slowly walked to it, the maple floorboards moaning under the weight of his belted boots. He pulled up a wooden chair and sat down, thankful that he was out of the storm. The hairs on his arms stood when the fire in the hearth warmed his body. An iron chandelier hung from the high ceiling with 9 white candles burning bright and scenting the air with the aroma of vanilla and pine. The patrons of the inn spoke of the day's labors and the politicians of the land, from the dim-witted lord of Wingleaf to the good looks of a princess who lived in the White Spire, which was a castle perched on the peaks of the Great White Mountains that once served as a stronghold for a powerful warlord in the Great Dragon Wars eons ago. But those conversations never lasted long here, for the ale flowed like the flooded creek behind the tavern, and the dual monster cards were taken out for a long night of fun and games. For the farmers of Ashford, nothing beat ending the day at the Lady Luck Inn with a tankard full of ale and a round of cards. Duel Monsters was the most beloved game in the land of Termina. The object of the game was for players to bring down their opponent's score, called life points, to 0, and they did so by casting spells, setting an array of deadly traps, and of course, summoning monsters. That was the best part of the game. There was a wide variety of monsters to play with. In fact, there were tens of thousands of them to use. From cute little furballs like the Karibo, to magic-wielding wizards like the Dark Magician, and fierce beasts such as the feared Blue Eyes White Dragon. Here in the tavern, Duel Monsters was but a mere game of cards. But out there, in Terminia's grandest cities, players, called Duelists, have the ability to call monsters in real form, giving the game a greater sense of urgency. Even though the monsters weren't real, they were still a menacing sight to behold. Nothing fogged the mind like an angry red dragon archfiend staring at you in the face. These holographic beasts have caused even the most arrogant of duelists to wet their pants and flee from the game in fright. Playing this way was mostly mastered by the youths of Termnia, who traveled to the elite school Duelist Academy. In the halls of this institution, they perfected their craft, learning complicated strategies that turned dueling into art. These kids were so tough and so level-headed that they didn't even flinch at the sight of the monsters, no matter how big or small they were. However, as romantic as it was summoning real monsters to the field, the patrons of the Lady Luck Inn preferred just to play with cards and paper playmats. Suddenly, cheers rang about the inn as the staff gathered some tables together to begin the annual weekend tournament, in which the winner would receive a pot of 50 silver coins and 2 gold star chips. The innkeeper held out an ultra-rare card to be won as well. Gaia the Fierce Knight, a warrior whose power was at the top of the charts, with a devastating attack power of 2,300. A player with that monster in their deck would be a force to be reckoned with, especially in a town such as this. The citizens had to make do with monsters that had 900, 600, even a mere 100 attack points in their decks. The games were going well as the night went on, with nearly 5 participants being eliminated from the tournament so far. The top player, a farm boy of 17, was quickly surrounded by the tavern's alluring maidens, who had come to root him on. They were scantily dressed in Buddha's corsets, which exhibited their shoulders, and tan linen skirts open at the sides to expose their legs. Lacy garters were wrapped around their thighs with rare duel monster cards tucked into them as payment, for in Termnia, rare cards were worth their weight in gold. Sometimes, depending on the rarity of the card, they were offered as payment instead of actual currency. The tavern maidens offered the farm boy kisses of good fortune in exchange for a rare card, and his binder was full of them, thanks to some shady contacts he had in town. It was because of these cards that he was trouncing the competition tonight. Sitting alone by the window away from the festivities, a hooded man was drinking from a jeweled goblet which he took out of his traveling pack. Its sparkling gems caught the eyes of many of the patrons. He also drew attention with his black coat, armored in layers of engraved black steel over his chest, shoulders, and around his waist, forming a tasset. His face was hidden in the darkness of his hood trimmed with silver threading, but the nearby fire revealed his mouth, which was twisted into a grin. He reached again into his pack and took out Scarlet's Kiss, a bottle of delicious wine from the finest vineyard in the land of Embledore, a country far to the west. The man poured the sweet drink into an extravagant goblet and took a loud, satisfying sip. Bakura was his name. He was of the Eldori, a colorful race of people who were born of drawings by Nala, the goddess of art and song. Since their creation, the Eldori had an uneasy relationship with men. But these tavern patrons knew better than to pick a fight with Bakura. There was something about him that made them feel uneasy. So, they left him alone and went to play cards in peace. As he waited for some service, he couldn't help but notice parties of weary adventurers about the place. Upstairs, there was a group making merry with another round of ale. The leader was a tall and very fit man wearing steel-plated armor colored gold and a red cape, and he wielded a sword as tall as a man. The marksman of the group was a handsome elf hooded and cloaked in dark green robes. To his left sat a tall, scantily clad barbarian woman. She carried a large battle axe and bore muscles that could crush a dragon's spine. Sitting beside her was her lover, a dwarf in a red leather jerkin over some chainmail. He wielded a regal-looking shield which he used to plow through his enemies, who sometimes got impaled on the gold spike protruding from the center. Their most powerful member was a sorceress in white sparkling robes trimmed in black. Shiny gems orbited around her head, and she had a ferret familiar sleeping inside her robes, only poking out so it could eat. The party was splitting the loot they got from raiding a cave of a powerful monster earlier that day. Bakura felt envious of the group, for they reminded him of days when he used to be an adventurer just like them. He raised his goblet and wished them good fortune silently. He then peered at a booth set inside a niche festooned with ivy and lit with a colored lamp. There sat a wizard in gray robes, a pointed hat, and wielding a silver staff. He had a long, bushy white beard shimmering in oil and plated with gold pieces. A winged dragon number 2 hatchling was resting over his shoulders, eating bits of lamb that the wizard would pass it. He was sitting across a girl in a black top, a flannel skirt, and belted boots. Around her waist was a belt, holding a wide variety of pouches big and small. Bronze goggles rested on her auburn hair, which was tied into pigtails with baby blue bows. Freckles adorned her face, full of youth and innocence, and blushing pink from the excitement she still had from attacking a bandit camp earlier that afternoon. She bragged about a few of her kills and asked the wizard how she did, to which he scoffed and told her to do better next time, for her eagerness to use her shiny new weapon almost got them both killed. The girl pouted and crossed her arms, causing Bakura to chuckle. In her anger, the girl left the booth to get another tankard of beer. The wizard followed, for he thought he could use another round as well. Underneath the head of a stone dragon mounted on the wall sat another group of adventurers. The swordsmen of the party were sharpening their blades and polishing their armor, which was dented and even burned. They had raided an old dungeon where a necromancer summoned the dead to wreak havoc on a small village below the mountains. A chest, filled with the loot they sacked from the necromancer's cave, sat in the middle of their table, ready to be shared amongst themselves after dinner. Their archer, a fair-faced Embledorian woman with long brown hair, rubbed scented oils down her ashwood bow, damasked in gold. She looked up at her group and grinned. "Have you taken a gander at the fortress in the mountains we just passed?" asked she. "I heard from some of the folk around here that it's the home of a lovely sorceress and her husband, who is said to be a very powerful wizard." An elven swordsman nodded while he counted his star chips. "I've heard stories about that place as well. Some very queer tales. There's talk it's where the song lives." "The song? What song?" asked the paladin in polished heavy armor. "The song from the divines," said the healer, a green-haired woman. She fed chicken pieces to her raven and said, "Do you remember that heavenly music that shook the earth last year? It was the proclamation from the goddesses. The coming of a great and mighty hero." The woman with the bow nodded. "I knew something was going to happen. When I was hunting feral hogs in the forest, I saw a winged egg of new life lying over my campsite. My mother once told me that the creature is a herald for the birth of very special children. By the goddesses, I wasn't thinking anything that special. Such a shame we couldn't go to the fortress and see the song for ourselves." "I doubt it's in there," said the paladin. "We'll never know even if we tried looking into it," said the elven swordsman. "It's guarded by 1,000 blackluster soldiers. Those warriors only mobilize when the High King orders them to. Something important must be hiding in there if the Lord of Termnia is involved." The red-headed girl with the wizard companion came back from the bar with 2 tankards of ale. She stopped by their table, for she couldn't help but overhear their conversation. "I heard that the forest is a haven filled with treasures. There are tunnels underneath it filled with gold, gems, and legendary weapons. What a raid that would be, huh? Anybody want to join?" The wizard clicked his tongue in agitation. Again she went, rounding up people for adventures that could cost life and limb. How many times must he remind her that he hated when she stuck her nose in other people's affairs? He picked up his staff and struck the girl on her bottom with it. "Sit down, child," he snapped. "What goes on in that place is none of your business, and I sure as Zork don't want to make it mine. There's been talk of strange folk roaming around out there ever since the sorcerers entered the fortress.
There's odd energy radiating from that place. I suggest we pay it no heed and continue our quest to find that artifact you're looking for.
The woman with the bow laughed.
Sorry, darling, but he's right. It's royal business, so we want no part in that. Not only that, but Blackluster's soldiers are also the best swordsmen in Termnia. They'll kill me before I can even spot them.
Meanwhile, duels on the other side of the tavern started heating up. "The Dark Magician Girl," the farm boy said, slapping his rarest card on the table.
Oh,
went the other patrons. They circled around the boy to get a better look at the card and admire the suggestive art of the most beautiful monster in the game. The farm boy continued with his turn. "I will use Dark Magician Girl to destroy your eye armor monster and attack you directly with my Gemini Elf. Heh. That wins me the duel and the guy the Fierce Knight." The tavern patrons cheered as he picked up his winnings, and then he held up Gaia proudly. "Good game," said the farm boy's opponent, the son of the town blacksmith. "A darn shame we don't have one of those duel discs. I'd love to see the Dark Magician Girl rendered in holographic form. Maybe I'll have a look up that skirt when she's played." The other patrons laughed and howled with agreement. Bakura rolled his eyes. Naturally, tavern patrons would make crude comments about their favorite female duel monsters. Canon the Sword Mistress was a good topic for discussion, and the Gemini Elf as well. But no monster excited a duelist more than the sensuous spellcaster Dark Magician Girl.
"I heard of an old duel monster's legend," said a bearded fellow with a round red nose, sitting near a wooden pillar. "They say that those who lust after the Dark Magician Girl just enough are then visited by her in the night." "Ah, and what does she do?" asked the town baker. "Well, anything her chosen lover wants," the bearded man replied. The patrons let out haughty laughs. "That's an old wives' tale," said the farm boy. "No, it's true," said a veteran warrior with an eye patch. "Oh, hogwash," said the farm boy. "That's just the stuff of legend. It can't be true. I've had the card for months and she never came." "Maybe she's just not interested in ya," said a bearded man. The others laughed, again slamming their hands on the tables, knocking down flasks and silverware. "What a bunch of drunken miscreants," rumbled Bakura. But he had to let them slide and have their fun with their petty legends. Who knows how long it's been since these men had any contact with women, save for the Lady Luck's pretty young waitresses. One of them came by to serve him. She bowed and said, "What would you like to eat, my lord?" Pulled pork," Bakura answered. "And I am not a lord." The waitress bowed and scampered away. A miner nearby could no longer hold his curiosity. He sat up and arrogantly walked towards Bakura. He pulled up a wooden chair and sat down. The frame of his seat creaked and moaned, trying to support his weight. The miner leaned forward, placed a gloved hand under his chin, and eyed Bakura's cub greedily.